Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the entire Carnegie Mellon community, it is my pleasure to warmly welcome all of you to Mill 19, CMU's advanced manufacturing facility here at Hazelwood Green. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon on this extraordinary day as we welcome President Joe Biden back to Pittsburgh. You know, Mill 19 is such a fitting location for President Biden's address on strengthening the national supply chain and revitalizing U.S. manufacturing. This iconic structure represents both the storied past and the reimagined future of American manufacturing. Decades ago, more than 5,000 workers produced more than 1 million tons of steel per year right here at this site, helping to power Pittsburgh's and the nation's economic engine. Today, Mill 19 is where CMU and its partners are catalyzing discoveries in the essential components of the 21st century manufacturing, including robotics, 3D printing, advanced manufacturing, and artificial intelligence. It might seem that the work taking place here is vastly different from the work of those who forged steel decades ago. Yet I would offer to you that in many ways, it's exactly the same. Both are rooted in deep pride, a tenacious work ethic, and the spirit of a community that's helping to power a nation. Mill 19 is also a showcase for the power of public-private partnerships. This building and the 178 acres that surround us represent a remarkable alignment of support and commitment from civic, public, and private leaders to advance this region's renaissance and pursue new approaches to community development, skills training, and education. At this inflection point for U.S. competitiveness, the nation is at the cusp of building an innovation-based economy through historic investment in our talent and workforce, in our research and development enterprise, and in our national infrastructure. While this moment is powered by technological innovations, it must also be driven by our shared humanity and by a common resolve to ensure that transformative economic opportunities reach all Americans. I'm excited and grateful to see so many elected officials and so many community and foundation partners here today. You are embracing this mission every day through your service and through your leadership. Thank you for your commitment, thank you for your passion, and once again, welcome to Carnegie Mellon.
Please welcome Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Before I make my remarks, I would just like to acknowledge everybody impacted by this morning's bridge tragedy, and our thoughts and prayers are with them, and big thank you to the first responders who did a fantastic job. So when President Biden called me to ask me to take this job as Secretary of Commerce, he said that one of his top priorities was revitalizing American manufacturing. And that really resonated with me because I'm from Rhode Island and my dad worked his whole career in manufacturing until when he was 56 years old, the factory closed, the jobs went to China, and we were out. So I called my brother and I said, hey, Tom, should I take this job? And he said, Gina, Dad would be so proud of you if you worked with the president to bring back manufacturing jobs to America. And that's what we're doing. President Biden's top priority is to make sure that we can compete globally And he knows that means we have to invest domestically. And thanks to his leadership, this economy is strong. This economy is strong by any measure. Wages are up, unemployment rate is down, created over 6.5 million jobs. But the reality is, even though the economy is strong, our supply chains are very fragile, and you know that. But the reason for that is because for decades, we've let all our manufacturing jobs go overseas, and we haven't invested enough in American manufacturing. That is particularly true for semiconductors, those tiny chips that power everything. We are far too dependent on countries halfway across the world to get our chips. That's an economic vulnerability and a national security vulnerability. And the fact of the matter is, and the President says this all the time, we can't have a strong economy and a strong country unless we get back into the business of making things in America. Right now, there is a bill on the floor of Congress that would invest $52 billion in domestic semiconductor production, and it would create thousands of jobs all over America. We need Congress to pass that bill in order to revitalize American manufacturing, revitalize American semiconductor manufacturing. It'll be a win for our workers, a win for our businesses, a win for our supply chains, and create thousands of jobs, and we can't wait. So let's hope Congress does their job and gets the CHIPS Act to the President's desk. So I want to thank you. I want to thank the President. I want to thank the President for his incredible leadership and for giving me this opportunity to work with him to revitalize and bring back great manufacturing to America. Thank you.
Please welcome the Governor of Pennsylvania, Tom Wolf.
So thank you very much, all of you, for being here. This is really great to have the President of the United States visit Pennsylvania. Actually, there are two really great reasons for him to be here and that we want to welcome him. First of all, to come back to his home state. That's right, Joe Biden is a native Pennsylvanian. And I hope you do, but I know I take credit for President Joe Biden being the second president of the United States who hails from Pennsylvania, so we're proud of that. But I'm also proud that he's chosen Pittsburgh to come back and highlight manufacturing. Pittsburgh is a story about the resurrection of manufacturing, what we can do in this country if we focus on investing in the things that make manufacturing great. That's what made this place great in the first place, and it's making it great all over again. And it's investment in the high-tech things that we saw today that's going on at Carnegie Mellon University that is really, really important. Let me point out one other thing. I just have a few comments. Before we came here, all of us toured the Forbes Avenue Bridge. It collapsed. We need to invest in high-tech manufacturing. We need to make sure that we bring manufacturing back to the United States. And we need to invest directly in manufacturing, but we need to invest in our infrastructure as well to make sure that things like the Forbes Avenue Bridge don't happen. That was a real tragedy. It was a tragedy because people were hurt. It was a tragedy because a real thoroughfare in Pittsburgh was lost for a time. The Commonwealth is working already to put it back up, but it's going to take time. But it's a real tragedy because it could have been prevented. Had we done what we're doing here, investing in manufacturing, had we invested in our infrastructure, we would have been more productive because bridges like that would not have fallen down. So I applaud President Biden for his leadership, not only in bringing manufacturing back to the United States, places like Pittsburgh, but in trying to make sure that we do what we've not done for too long, and that is invest in infrastructure. So thank you, President Biden, for coming to Pennsylvania. Thank you for your leadership in investing in manufacturing, and thank you for your leadership in investing in infrastructure. You are investing in the people of the United States. Thank you very much.
Please welcome Mayor Ed Gainey.
Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for being here today. And I definitely want to thank President Biden for coming to Pittsburgh today. It's a great day for a couple reasons. One, we're celebrating a $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure law that will help us repair our bridges, our roads, our streets, and connect people with good paying union jobs. We should celebrate that from the beginning. And secondly, let's really thank CMU for doing all they're doing to just revamp manufacturing in this region. And thank President Biden for coming here and investing in manufacturing in a way that is going to prepare us to be victory in the 21st century. For that, we are honored, and we definitely thank CMU and the President for that amazing, amazing feat. And thirdly, let me say, I want to thank the President because he pivoted and came to the Fern Hollow Bridge today, where we had a collapse of our bridge. And when we talk about investing in infrastructure, when we're talking about how important it is, for him to say, I want to come and see it myself, as the mayor of this city, it made me feel proud that the President of the United States had our back and said that he would do whatever he can to help us restore that bridge. So when we talk about infrastructure dollars and how important infrastructure is, that is a prime example why this bill is so important. We must invest in our bridges, in our streets, because they are the connector to our communities, to our schools, to our jobs, to medical facility, and that's why building infrastructure like the ones we're talking about today in manufacturing, that is what it's all about. And so today is a day of celebration, because as always, when Pittsburgh hits a crisis, we pull each other up. And when we pull each other up, we build a better city for everybody. Thank you.
Please welcome County Executive Rich Fitzgerald.
Thank you all for being here today, and especially thank you to President Biden, not just for what you're doing on the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, but what you have done over the last year. Nothing short of spectacular. As the Secretary indicated, 6.5 million jobs in 1 year. No president in our history has created more jobs in his first year than this president has done. We saw yesterday the GDP in the fourth quarter grew at 6.9%. Numbers we never thought we would see. Small businesses, 30% increase over the last year, the highest in a quarter century. The lowest unemployment forms filed since 1969. 1969, the Pirates were playing at Forbes Field. Steelers were playing at Pitt Stadium. Ed Gainey wasn't even born yet, I don't think, Mayor Gainey. But what's he doing for an encore? Infrastructure. Nothing could have been further from what we saw today than to know the importance of infrastructure. And again, president after president, Democrat and Republican, over the last number of decades has tried to get an infrastructure bill passed. None of them were able to do it except for President Biden. Yeah, that's and I want to thank our congressional delegation for doing just that. Senator Casey, you're going to hear from next. Congressman Doyle and Congressman Lamb, who had the president's back and worked together to make sure we invest in our infrastructure. We needed this bill so badly, and we've needed it for years, and we need to be proactive. And I know, looking out into this crowd, we have a few Steeler fans who understand football. And in football, if your team is in last place and only wins 1 or 2 games, you fire the coach. We don't do that in Pittsburgh because our coaches do pretty well. They learned how to do that in Cleveland and Detroit. No, I better not say that too loud in front of people. But the last administration lost more jobs than any administration in our history, even more than Herbert Hoover. So what did we do? We fired that coach. I'm not going to even mention his name. And then we hired Coach Biden. And Coach Biden has done all those things that I have talked about. And the other thing that Coach Biden has done, President Biden has done, is he has not forgotten Western Pennsylvania. He continues to come here. He continues to come invest in us and invest in our future. And for that, we are very grateful. Thank you, President Biden.
Please welcome Senator Bob Casey.
Good afternoon. I'm honored to be here today as we all welcome back to Pennsylvania and back to Pittsburgh President Biden. We're honored, of course, by so many others today in this audience and those who've preceded me to the microphone, including Governor Wolf, as well as our Secretary of Commerce, Secretary Raimondo. We want to pause today, of course, to remember what happened just miles from here. We're thinking of those who were injured today in the bridge collapse, the collapse of that bridge over Frick Park. We're thinking of those who were injured, but we're especially thinking as well of those who came to their rescue, the first responders. As usual, the city of Pittsburgh, the people of Pittsburgh, came together in a crisis to help those most in need. Let's give those first responders and local officials a hand. I don't think I have to tell anyone here the story of Pittsburgh. You know it better than I do. But the story of Pittsburgh, the story of Allegheny County in southwestern Pennsylvania, is a story that President Biden knows well when he comes here. In all the years he's been present here, walking in Labor Day parades, shaking hands, and looking into the eyes of people who struggle, the working men and women who are represented here today by organized labor. He knows the story of southwestern Pennsylvania, the story of a people who were knocked down when we lost a lot of jobs here in the 70s and the 80s. But he also knows the story of how the people of this region got back on their feet. They worked, they innovated, and they invented. In fact, they invented their own future. You can see it right here today in the place that we stand. The good news about today and more days ahead is the president not only knows that story, he's investing in that future. And his work led to the investments we can celebrate today. Here at Mill 19, this site was once a home to a large steel mill that employed more than 5,000 workers at its peak. Now it's a hub for advanced manufacturing, focused on robotics, artificial intelligence, and so many other innovations. The people of this city and this region made it possible. Mill 19 represents the best of southwestern Pennsylvania, people coming together and working with this community here in Hazelwood to create a bright future for this neighborhood and for this city. Today, children who live just across the train tracks can come to a former steel mill and learn about robotics and other skills in their neighborhood. At the same time, we're grateful that the president has made investments in other parts of the economy of southwestern Pennsylvania. He sees firsthand and understands the strength of our manufacturing economy here, the region's critical role in the national supply chain. We all know the story of Pittsburgh's three rivers. Those three rivers, those waterways, drive this region's economy while connecting our nation's commerce. All of this is powered by men and women working day after day to keep our supply chains moving and our commodities and our goods moving across the country. But we know with waterways, decades of underinvestment put our waterways infrastructure and the 76,500 jobs in those waterways. We know that those jobs are now at risk if we don't make these investments. The good news is, just a couple of days ago, the Army Corps of Engineers, this administration, the Biden-Harris administration announced $857.7 million to complete the construction of the Montgomery Lock and Dam. We're grateful for that. And so this is a day to look towards that future, the future for young children in this neighborhood, in this city, this county, in this region. Today is a day to focus on tomorrow, and we're grateful that you're here with us to do that. And thank you again to President Biden for taking the time to be with us today, and we look forward to hearing from him shortly.
Please welcome the President of the United States, Joe Biden, accompanied by Jojo Burgess.
Jojo Burgess, and I'm a proud member of the United Steelworkers, Local 1557. I've worked at U.S. Steel for 3 years down at the Clareton plant, but I have over 23 years union experience with the steelworkers. I'm also the son of 2 former steelworkers, and I'm proud to announce also that my son is a 3rd-generation steelworker working in the Pittsburgh area. I can't tell you how excited and honored I am to be part of this event that highlights manufacturing in this Pittsburgh area. But the entire state of Pennsylvania benefits from this. A big part of my job at U.S. Steel is training new hires to work on the coke batteries, which is a vital process involved in the steelmaking process. I'm glad that I'll be able to go and say to the leadership of President Biden, to those new hires, that not only your job's safe for today, but he's investing in your jobs in the future. That's big for me. Also, I'm a veteran, a Desert Storm veteran. I can go to my fellow veterans and say, listen, this president is invested in us also by making sure that there are jobs available for veterans coming back into society to be part of this growing economy manufacturing boom, excuse me, sorry. So I'm beyond grateful to President Biden for his leadership in getting the Investment Jobs Act passed. It was a victory that was long overdue, and this manufacturing in this country will benefit from it. So again, thank you, Mr. President. The investment bill makes industries like mine and steel very, very important again in this country. I have to talk about this Pittsburgh region because, again, I say I have 23 years experience in manufacturing in this region. I'm going to pause a second, again, like the others did, and talk about the infrastructure and what happened today in the city of Pittsburgh. My thoughts and prayers are with all the people that were affected by that. But I have to admit, this region, the Pittsburgh region, benefits from this act for several reasons. I can look at my experience down at U.S. Steel. Everyone hears steel, but one thing that they don't know is part of the infrastructure comes out of our Edgar Thompson plant. The slag that is used there is used in the paving of roads and helping to help the infrastructure in commerce and getting trucks and stuff across this country. Also, when we talk about the steelworkers supplying America, that's no lie. Just right here in southwestern Pennsylvania, I could think about the different locals and the different people that I've worked with, come in contact with. The local down in Cannonsburg, where we do our pots and pans, world-renowned all-clad metals. My son works at a place called International Paper. We box the stuff that we got to ship around this country for people to be able to move their goods. A place that I worked at for years, Pennsylvania Transformer. They make power transformers that deal with the infrastructure of providing electricity to this country. So again, we appreciate all that this president's leadership has done to bring manufacturing back to this area. So it is now it is my utmost privilege to introduce a man who has made it a point to be a champion for workers, for unions, and for a generation to come, President Joe Biden.
Please sit down. Please sit down. Jojo, thank you very much. You know, I can picture him in Desert Storm as a sergeant barking out orders, can't you? When my son Bo was promoted to major in Iraq, and I said, now you're a field grade officer. He said, Dad, I have no illusions. I know who runs the Army. Sergeants, they're the officers. Well, hello, Pittsburgh. It's good to be back. It really is good to be. Before I begin, let me just talk a little bit about what we all just saw, many of us saw this morning. A bridge more than 50 years old, I think it was 150 years, it says 50 years old, but I thought it was older, collapsed right here in Pittsburgh. It had been rated in poor condition for the past 10 years. What you all know, if you don't, you should know, there are another 3,300 bridges here in Pennsylvania, some of which are just as old and just as decrepit condition as that bridge was, including here in Pittsburgh, the city of bridges. I've been coming to Pittsburgh a long time. I'm a Pennsylvania kid. I was born and raised the first part of my life in Pennsylvania, and I've been to Pittsburgh a lot. But all these years, I never knew Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, had more bridges than any other city in the world. Yo! But across the country, there are 45,000 bridges in poor condition. It's just simply unacceptable. That's why your governor and your members of Congress, your mayor, have been saying for years, we have to do something about this. I've talked about it every time I've come to Pittsburgh, and we finally got it done. A bipartisan infrastructure law, including the largest investment in our nation's bridges since the Eisenhower put together the interstate highway system. And I might add, this is the first time in the country's history that we dedicated a national program to repair and upgrade bridges. And it's about time. The governor can tell you, we're giving state and local leaders historic funding to make national projects real. Here in Pennsylvania, That means at least $1.6 billion for bridges alone, $327 million in 2022 alone just to repair bridges. We've got to get it on with it. We've got to move. The next time, we don't need headlines saying that someone was killed when the next bridge collapsed. We're also providing billions more for roads and so much more. We saw today when a bridge is in disrepair, it literally can threaten lives. As soon as we heard about the bridge, we were immediately in contact with the mayor. Mr. Mayor, you're doing a hell of a job. And the governor and other officials on the ground. And we're going to rebuild that bridge, along with thousands of other bridges in Pennsylvania and across the country, because it's in our interest for our own safety's sake, and it generates commerce in a way that we can't do now. That's part of how we're going to build a better America, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. So thank you for the introduction, Jojo. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, County Executive Rich Fitzgerald, great to see you again, pal. And it's good to be here with so many outstanding folks, particularly the governor, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. John, if I had you in front of me when I was playing at Delaware, I could have been an All-American. I could have been big. And Connor Lamb, it's great to see you, man. And you're doing a hell of a job, all of you. And my good friend and former neighbor in Scranton, Bobby Casey. Now, his dad, we're about the same spread. His dad was as much older than me than I am than Bobby, but I lived in North Washington Avenue. You notice they changed the end of the road name. It's the Joe Biden way now. You know, no, really, you see that? I shouldn't say this, I'm going to get in trouble in Delaware, Mr. Secretary, but the first thing I asked the election results, I said, how did I do in Scranton? I won every precinct. And so I used to drive up Route 81 all the time to get, not just to get Scranton, but get up to Syracuse when I was at Syracuse Law School. And the entrance to go get to Scranton off 81 is the Joe Biden Expressway. So I'm coming home, Bobby, I'm coming home. But look, all kidding aside, I want to thank our Commerce Secretary, former Governor Junior Raimondo, for joining us today. And I want to thank Congressman Mike Doyle, who couldn't be here today, but who's done so much for this district. Nearly 3 years ago, I began my campaign for president right here in Pittsburgh, first major stop I made. I said back then I was running to restore the backbone of America, the middle class. It's time we began to build this country from the middle up and the bottom out, so that I've never known when a wealthy person didn't do well when the middle class was doing well. We always do better when ordinary, hard-working people have a shot. After I accepted the party's nomination in August of 2020, I came to Mill 19 for my first major campaign stop. And I laid out my vision to build a better America with better pay, greater dignity for the working people who are the ones who built this country. I often hear about who built the country. Guess what? The middle class built this country, and unions built the middle class. And folks, making it in America with American manufacturing and easing the financial burdens on millions of families, that's the same vision I laid out once again when I was here in Pittsburgh, the first stop I made after I was sworn in as president. Now, after my first year, I wanted to come back to Pittsburgh. This is my third time here in this facility. And to take stock of what we've accomplished together and look forward to the extraordinary opportunities that lie ahead for Pittsburgh and America if we continue to do our job. From day one, every action I've taken to rebuild the economy has been guided by one principle: make it in America, like we used to. No one knows that better than all the folks here in Pittsburgh, and that's why it matters so much. Making it in America is what built this city, the Steel City, the arsenal of democracy during World War II, when Pennsylvania generated as much steel as Germany, Japan, and Italy combined right here in the city of Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh also knows the consequences when we ignore the backbone and fail to invest in ourselves, fail to invest in our people. Some of you have been around long enough to remember how this city lost 100,000 steel jobs between 1970 and 1990. I was raised when I moved from Scranton. My dad didn't have any work, and we moved to Claymont, Delaware. Used to be an outfit called Worth Steel. There were over 6,000 steel. The town was a company town. There's not a single steel worker there now. By the 1980s, more than 3/4 of Pittsburgh's steel capacity had been shuttered. You or your parents remember what you felt like in your neighborhood. It didn't feel good. The painful ripple effect it had. Jobs lost, families ripped apart. So you know that to build a truly strong economy, we need a future that's made in America. That means using products, parts, materials built right here in the United States of America. It means bringing manufacturing back, jobs back, building the supply chains here at home, not outsourcing abroad so we have better jobs and lower prices here. It means betting on America's workers. And it takes the federal government that doesn't just give lip service to buying America, but actually takes action. That's the approach I've taken from day one. And now we're beginning to see the results. We learned this week, after my first year as president, the United States had the fastest economic growth in nearly 4 decades, along with the greatest year of job growth in American history, 6.4 million jobs created in 1 year. And instead of losing manufacturing jobs, since I've been in office, America has actually added an additional 367,000 manufacturing jobs in America. Good paying jobs. The highest increase in U.S. manufacturing jobs in 30 years. And last week, the CEO of Intel, Pat Gelsinger, came to the White House because he wanted to support the Build Back Better initiative and to also let me know 2 of your neighboring senators were here. Were there, Portman and Brown, a Democrat and Republican from Ohio. He came to announce a new $20 billion semiconductor campus outside of Columbus, Ohio. That's going to create 10,000 jobs, 7,000 constructing the facility, and 3,000 permanent jobs. And by the way, I was joking. I said, I may need a job. He said, well, it's not bad. The average salary is $135,000 a year. Folks, and the key is these jobs are manufacturing essential products, stamped made in America. Semiconductors are, though you all know, they're small computer chips that power virtually everything in everyday life, and they were originated here in the United States of America. We used to own not only the patent, but the technology and the production. Your phone, your car, your refrigerator, your washing machine, hospital equipment, the internet, the electric grid, and so much more depend on these chips. So this is going to create thousands of additional jobs, helping build more American products. For example, you know, inflation is a problem, which I'll speak to in a second. It's real. And a lot of people are being hurt by it. But guess what? 1/3 of the inflation in America is a consequence of the cost of automobiles. 1/3. You know why? Because of the shortage of semiconductors. They can't build them. And therefore, the ones that aren't being built cause the price of those that are being built to go much higher. This announcement helps fix that problem. 3 days ago, I called a meeting in the White House of CEOs from General Motors, Ford, Microsoft, Hewlett-Packard, and others. Mary Barra, General Motors CEO, announced in the White House an initial $7 billion investment in Michigan to manufacture electric vehicles, creating 4,000 new quality jobs. That's on top of the announcement made by CEO of Ford, Jim Farley, last year, investing $11 billion in electric vehicles, creating 11,000 new jobs. And today, right here in Western Pennsylvania, the Union Pacific Railroad is announcing the largest purchase of American-made battery electric locomotives in all of history. And by the way, guess who's supplying those batteries? General Motors. Folks, I want to tell you, it matters. It matters a lot. The company who will build these locomotives is called Wabtec. W-A-B in their name is because they grew out of the old Westinghouse Air Brake Company, a classic Pittsburgh manufacturer. Wabtec is based here in Pittsburgh. And these locomotives will be built up in Erie at the same plant that Thomas Edison built the Ford General Electric more than a century ago. Not only will these locomotives be running here at home, powering our economy and decreasing pollution, Wabtec will also be exporting them to Canada, to Australia, and all around the world, again, creating more good-paying jobs. Folks, in the process, reducing climate change, generating jobs here in Western Pennsylvania. As I said, good-paying jobs you can raise a family on. My dad said that all you need, a family needs just a little bit of breathing room. A little bit of breathing room. And so many people don't have it now. But it also means something else. It means that right here in Pittsburgh, the future is being built on the foundation of this city's storied past. An announcement like this doesn't happen in a vacuum. The manufacturing resurgence we're seeing today is no accident. It takes local leaders, federal leaders, foundations, businesses, unions, universities, all pulling together. It requires a mindset like you have here in Mill 19. Here's what I mean by that. Generations ago, Mill 19 used to roll out 10-inch steel bars. Today, it rolls out the latest innovation in advanced manufacturing robotics, 3D printing, and artificial intelligence. It's simply rolling out the future. That's what it's going to be doing. That success is a result of a partnership. The federal government provides funding from everything from basic research to great universities like Carnegie Mellon, to supporting partnerships that help small businesses in Western Pennsylvania get into the game in the first place, like the businesses here at Mill 19. Organizations like one called Catalyst. They work with small business to adapt to the latest technologies they need and grow and compete globally. The work is made possible by funding from the Commerce Department. And they partner with engineers and researchers from Carnegie Mellon University who design the next generation of advanced manufacturing equipment, creating technologies that work alongside workers instead of replacing the workers. In fact, Carnegie Mellon and the AFL-CIO are teaming up to make these technologies, make sure they're designed to support workers. Another organization here at Mill 19 called ARM Institute. ARM Institute is a public-private partnership funded in part by the federal government to help robotics technology move into the marketplace and to help train workers to build, operate, and repair robots so that working folks right here can take on good-paying jobs that companies like Wabtec are helping to create. And by the way, thanks to the American Rescue Plan, the first major bill we got passed in March, my Commerce Department is investing an additional $1 billion in local efforts to strengthen regional economies throughout the country. Some of that money is coming right here to Western Pennsylvania in support of efforts that include partners here at Mill 19, helping spread new robotics, artificial intelligence, manufacturing technologies, and create more jobs across the nation. Look, you all get it. The bottom line is this. It takes all of us working together, to get this done. And that's finally beginning to happen. When the federal government invests in innovation, it powers up the private sector to do what it does best, creating incredible new technologies, new industries, and most importantly, new jobs, good-paying jobs. These are the kinds of investments and partnerships that help us build a made-in-America future. We can't slow down now. We can't slow down now. We know what happens when we stop investing in the future of places like Pittsburgh. Decades ago, we used to invest 2% of our gross domestic product in research and development here in America. Let me emphasize that. Research and development. Today, we invest less than 1%. The United States of America used to be ranked #1 in the world in investing in the future. Now we rank #9 in research and development. China was #8 3 decades ago. Today it's #2. And other countries are catching up fast. But we can and we must change that trajectory. We have an opportunity ahead of us right now. The House and Senate, the United States Congress and the United States Senate are working out a bill that's going to provide an extra $90 billion for research and development, manufacturing all the elements of the supply chain needed to produce the end products. This should help create more partnerships like the ones you have right here in Mill 19. Secretary Raimondo, former governor of Rhode Island, she's been helping lead this effort. She knows what it takes. And my expectation is this will continue to be a bipartisan effort, God willing, just like the infrastructure law. And by the way, regarding the infrastructure law, we brought together Democrats and Republicans, being led by Senator Casey and Senator Lamb and other members of your delegation here, the Democrats, along with Republicans, to do something about infrastructure. Now, just 74 days after signing that law, we're already making tangible differences for highways, ports, airports, rail, high-speed internet, clean air, clean water. That includes $1.6 billion over the next 5 years for Pennsylvania to repair its bridges. As I said earlier, there are more than 3,300 bridges across Pennsylvania and over 7,500 miles of highway in poor condition. It also means jobs, replacing lead water pipes, so families in 10 million homes and in 400,000 schools and child care centers can drink clean water, not lead-based. Jobs. Jobs providing the labor and infrastructure, making high-speed internet affordable and available everywhere in America, cities, suburban, and rural areas, so that nobody's left behind. Nobody's left behind. You know, when you can pause for a second, if you think about it, how many times during the period when COVID was so bad, it's still not good, but we're getting there. When COVID was so bad and schools were closed, you'd ride by McDonald's and see a family sitting in the parking lot. So the kid could use his computer or her computer to be able to tie into the internet out of the McDonald's or any other fast food restaurant. This is the United States of America, for God's sake. What are we doing? What in God's name are we doing? We've announced major investment of $858 million to modernize the Montgomery Lock in northwest of Pittsburgh. So the water levels stay high enough for barges to pass through up the upper Ohio River. We move about $500 billion worth of goods through those locks like these across the country every single year. When they're not working, it creates choke points. Barges break up. Goods don't get to where they need to go. Bob Casey's been on my back about this for so long. As we get this Montgomery Lock project done, I think we should call it the Casey Lock. I mean, Bobby, I didn't know anybody in Scranton knew what the hell a lock was, you know what I mean? But all kidding aside, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I've also announced, after consulting with my friend Cecil Roberts, President of the United Mine Workers, a plan to cap and plug orphan gas wells and oil wells, spewing methane into the air. Over 100,000 of them. Clean up abandoned mines. I come from coal country, Scranton. Thousands of these wells help generate economic growth here in Pennsylvania. But now it's time to create good-paying union jobs, capping those wells. They're abandoned. They get the same salary as those who dug them in the first place. Look, this law also delivers $7.5 billion to build a network of electric vehicle charging stations. good friend of mine, Lonnie Stevenson, the president of the IBW. They're going to have a good time, man. Over 500,000 of these charging stations on our highways. And by the way, when you build these stations, what happens, just like when you build a gas station on a highway, other things grow up around it. You're going to see communities grow as a consequence, making us more globally competitive in the future of electric vehicles while helping fight climate change. And folks, here in Pennsylvania, you all know best the cost of inaction when it comes to climate. Extreme weather cost this state $10 billion over the last decade. $10 billion. You all remember last fall when Hurricane Ida made landfall, and he's running my operation now, and the former mayor of Louisiana, when it hit Louisiana. Winds hit 178 miles an hour. And guess what happened here? It flooded businesses in Oakdale and homes in Millvale. Nationally last year, extreme weather cost us $145 billion. That's what it costs the American public. And extreme weather is not going to ease up on its own. We have to be ready. That's why we're investing in our resilience, building roads higher when we rebuild them, our levees stronger, our power grids more durable so they don't get blown down and cause massive, massive, massive wildfires, to withstand the increasing ferocity of extreme weather. You know, I went all over the country last year visiting these sites, flying over vast, vast stretches of land in West, in Oregon, in Washington, in Idaho, looking down from that helicopter and seeing nothing but barren, barren land. You know, more timber, more housing, more businesses burned to the ground last year in the United States than the entire physical size of the state of New Jersey, from the New York state line down to the Delaware Bay. That's how much burned to the ground this last year. All of these investments in making it American, research and development, infrastructure, are really about one thing: empowering more cities and more towns to do what you're doing right here in Pittsburgh, transforming yourself from being told you're a city without a future to becoming the city of the future. Think what your kids are going to have with this leadership you have in front of you here. 15 years from now, here in Pittsburgh, we're going to lead the world again. It's not hyperbole. It's a fact. Where, instead of shuttering factories along the Allegheny River, we're going to now talk about, not Steel Row, we're going to talk about Robotics Row. 3-mile run with some of the world's most innovative businesses. A place where the future is being written, where families can have good paychecks, good homes, a future, and a little bit of breathing room. The story we have kept writing here in Pittsburgh, you keep writing in communities all across the country, is the one you've begun. But we can't slow down, folks. We need to ease the burden on working families, making everything more affordable and accessible to hardworking people. That's what my Build Back Better plan is all about. That's why those major corporations came to the White House asking to see me to tell me they supported Build Back Better, even though it was going to increase their taxes. Going to increase their taxes. This plan will not cost the American people a single penny beyond. No one making less than $400,000 will pay a single additional penny in their taxes. And it reduces the deficit. And 14 Nobel laureates in economics wrote to me telling me that it would also diminish the impact of inflation. Take child care. How many families in this town can continue to afford to pay $14,000 per kid for child care? Well, the plan I have cuts that in half for most families, helping with their budgets, helping millions of parents, especially women, go back to work. How many of you know anybody who has type 1 diabetes? They need insulin. You know how much it costs to make that insulin? Less than $10. You know how much it costs on average nationwide for a monthly supply of insulin, which you needed every single month? $656, as high as $1,000. Imagine being the parent making the minimum wage or twice the minimum wage and having a child with type 1 diabetes, knowing that if you can't, and have no insurance, knowing if you cannot get that money for the insulin, your child may die. In addition to your child, it strips you of your dignity, damn it. Can you imagine looking at your child and you know what they need and not be able to do it? Many of you have lost children. Many of you have seen. Imagine. It's outrageous. And we have an answer. At the same time, same is true for home and community-based services for seniors and people with disabilities. Folks, look. What's the one thing if you know, a lot of you are part of the so-called sandwich generation. You have a child that you need to get daycare so you can go out and work, as well as you got a mom or a dad who's elderly and living at home and they don't want to move out of their house. They don't have to sell every single thing they have to be able to move into a nursing home. But you know, the data shows 88,000 people qualify, 800,000 people qualify under Medicare to get that help, but it's not available. And sometimes it's as little as making sure there's someone there just to pick up the prescription, put a handrail in the shower, making sure someone can show up and help the meal. It's cheaper for everybody. It's a decent thing to do. Because the parents deserve to have a little bit of dignity. And it will not cause, it will not increase the deficit. And it will not cost anybody making less than $4,000, $400,000 a penny. I'm a capitalist. If you can make $1 billion, $1 million, go at it. It's good. But at least pay a little bit. Fortune 500 companies. In Fortune 500 companies the last 2 years, there are 55 who made over $40 billion. Didn't pay a cent in taxes. I'm not talking about anybody paying any more than they did 10 years ago. Look, we know how to ease the pressure on families. We're increasing productivity and the potential for our economy. We can afford these investments by making sure the wealthiest just pay a little bit without increasing the deficit. As I said, no one earning less than, I guarantee you, check it out, no one earning less than $400,000 will ever pay another penny. And I told you about the impact of 17 Nobel laureates saying it's going to decrease inflation, not increase it. So here's the bottom line. The United States is in a position to outcompete the rest of the world once again. We're at a real inflection point. Technology, society's changing, and we've always been ahead of the curve. We have an incredible opportunity ahead of us, but we still face tremendous challenges. But if we can keep coming together and invest in the backbone of this country, there's no limit to what we can achieve. So let's continue to give working families a fighting chance. Let's keep investing in the future of every city and town in this country. Let's face the challenges head on. Let's keep building a better America because it's totally, completely within our power. I promise you. I promise you. It's about time we stop fighting. And it's about time we start working together again. Thank you for your consideration for what we're talking about. We can do an awful lot. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Folks, a guy who's helping all those vets coming back is the head of the VA, Dennis McDonough. Dennis, raise your hand, pal. Let him know who you are. He's back anyway. We'll get him. We'll get him. But there's a lot going on, folks. God bless you all. May God protect our troops. Thank you.